It is Tuesday, January 10th, and the Give and Go show is back in your life. My name is Griffin Queen, and as always, I'm joined by Matt Modi and Matt Ferentinos. Right before we got this episode going, I was about to tell a little story because we were talking about things that, friends planned on doing and never ended up doing, right? So before we jump into NBA talk, before we talk about the nerdy stuff that we always talk about, I'm just going to give a very, very brief story. Ferentinos may remember this. This was probably about 10 years ago.
Okay.
I
long-term
want to
memory
say
is better than short.
Yeah. Short-term memory is donezo, but the long-term, the core memories, at least the core sad memories, they're still there.
The important stuff.
I want to say I don't think I was in Arizona yet. So I think I was either turning 19 or 20. And there was a point between like 18 and 20 where everybody would hang out at my house all the time. And we'd have like anywhere from 5 to 30 people at my house, basically every single night of the week.
Shindigs, right?
Yeah, shindigs, and then stuff preceding them, stuff after them. Just
So
like
you
people
had
hanging out.
The Sunny Archer nights where we'd get Cafe Rio. That was like a staple.
Yeah, we'd get food together. We'd do food challenges. We'd play Super Smash. We'd play Mario Kart, like all the dumb shit that 18-year-olds do, right? Not enough drug use. Very, very minimal drug use. And so I want to say this is me turning 19 or 20. My birthday is coming up. Everyone kind of knows that I'm not a big fan of my birthday. And a lot of the reason that I'm not a big fan of my birthday is because for a long time, I didn't have birthday parties or nobody would plan anything. And I'm not going to do a sob story or anything like that.
I was
always kind of anti-birthdays. So I think people took that as a reason to not throw a birthday thing for me. And there was a year stretch where we basically threw birthday events for everybody. And most of them were hosted at my house, right? And my birthday comes and my birthday goes and nothing occurs on my birthday. And I'm like, all right, cool. People texted me, people knew to leave me alone, whatever. Months and months later, we're talking about it. And somebody brings up my birthday and immediately gets shushed. And I'm like, why are you shushing them? We didn't end up doing anything. I come to find out that my entire group of friends planned on having this massive party for me. And not only were they going to have this massive party for me, but they were going to do it at Shadowland, the laser tag place.
Oh, that place was the best.
For most people, it's the best. For the guy that can't see color, that place sucks.
Fair. Yeah.
But you love making aliases, right?
I like playing arcade games. I like doing all that stuff. So I come to find out that not only were they planning on throwing a party for me, that they ended up not even doing, but they were going to do it at a place that I'm notorious for hating because I can't participate, because I can't see who's on my team and who's not. Most ridiculous shit ever. And I find out about this 6 months after my birthday, and apparently it's been a secret that everyone's keeping from me. And Ferentinos, I know you were part of this. I know you were.
Yeah, I don't know.
So,
I don't think.
So why did it not? I don't understand. Why did it not happen?
They just ended up not having the time to throw it. They got lazy. My birthday arrived too quickly and they decided not to do it.
I don't think
they were going to keep it a secret forever. This was Rachel Clark, Lauren Gill, Thomas might've been part of it. Meeks might've been part of it. These are people that Ferentinos.
Yeah, I'm
pretty sure you were part of it.
I was at Maryland at that time. So
no, you weren't. You were at MC.
I was doing karate. I was hanging out with Michael.
Whatever. Oh my God. Yeah. Okay. All that to say, we were telling another story about something that we found out a year and a half after the fact that maybe I wasn't supposed to find out about before we got on this video.
I thought
just don't tell me in the future. There's something that you're not confident that was is for me or for me and my significant other or the dogs or something just don't tell me.
Don't do it.
Just don't tell me.
I was expecting that story to go that they trolled you and threw you a birthday party 3 months after the fact. He hates his birthday, so we're gonna have it in August.
Literally never got it.
I think that's definitely the better story, but I do think could have been a good troll is to throw a birthday party 3 months after the fact.
I do remember taking your credit card and saying that we were getting Wendy's and bought a Taco Bell party box instead. I do remember that.
That's another
as a bad friend moment.
Core memory. I gave you guys my credit card at a party that I was throwing under the guy. I had basically had not eaten that day, and you were like, "Yeah, we'll go get you food. We'll bring it back." I was like, "Get yourself some stuff. No big deal." They went and instead of going to McDonald's to get what I asked for, they went to Taco Bell. They got a box of tacos and they didn't give me any.
It was like 20 tacos, and it was done by
Yeah,
the
and
time
I
we
didn't
got
get
back.
one. I didn't get one taco.
Yeah, it's pretty.
You guys
messed
went
up.
to get me food with my money and then came back and gave food to other people.
You know, we were all having our little thing with Natty Light for the first time, so she had her different effect on everybody else. You know.
Yeah. People wonder why I threw up at parties when I was like 19, 20. It's because there was nothing in me except for alcohol.
Well, why didn't you eat prior to the party?
Because I wasn't thinking, Modi.
We did eat
Because
hot
I
wings.
was having like a weird panic attack, being like, I hope this is a good party for 12 hours.
I was gonna say you probably slept until like 6 and woke up like, oh,
Also probably true. Honestly, I probably worked beforehand and I was like, yeah, I'll eat in between. And then people, which was notorious
Started
for the
showing up.
shindigs, people would show up way too early because they'd want to, do stuff before the party. And I just, wouldn't think about kicking them out. Neither here nor there. That's my little core memory trauma story for everybody. Actually, I guess 2 core memory trauma stories. So enjoy. Before we get into NBA stuff, where are we at on some nerdy stuff? Ferentinos, you've been watching Full Metal Alchemist for the first time ever in
Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood.
2023rd year of our Lord. I don't know how it's taken you this long.
Big what's his name, like Eldrick Eric or something, or
Edward
Elric.
You kind of just like
you just put this name
some
in
of the
2
E's.
different
yeah.
Alphonse and Edward.
Yes. Love Edward as a protagonist. I mean, the 2 of them are great, but like just as a shorter person, I think it's hilarious that everyone's like, you mean it's him, the like short guy? And he's like,
He is absolutely a short king.
Like he definitely has that energy.
Yeah. It's a great joke as it goes.
Yeah. And then I like I mean, I'm watching Brotherhood now, but I do enjoy like the different animation styles. And then the stories just like instantly like gets very dark. And it's like, these are about kids. Like, I mean, I'm not going to get too into it, but I'm at episode 5 now, and I've been like really surprised with how dark it's gotten. Like the guy who needed to keep his license, who experimented with people, like that
So
was
messed
fucked.
up.
Like,
So
but
messed up.
I love the 2 of them.
Worry not, Ferentinos. It's gonna get darker.
Yeah, I can see. Like, there's one character who just wants to eat people. That's all I know about him right now. So he just loves eating people. So that's great.
Do you know any of their names yet? For like, do you know his name?
No,
it doesn't matter. I'm just curious, like where you are, because I don't really remember exactly the order of events.
The people who were trying to start like the Light Cult or like the Lord of the Light or something, where it's like everyone follows us.
Or
It's,
something.
yeah, it's like the super sexy woman that's actually in charge of everything, and not the old priest that he defeated in episode 2, I think.
Father something LO. I don't know.
Yeah, but she's like in his crew, and the guy's just like, "Can I eat him? Can I eat him?"
Yeah. You'll get a lot of them. They're key characters. I'm so excited for you to be watching this for the first time.
But
yeah,
the humor is great. I recognize like just a lot of the voice actors from other animes. So I'm watching the English version now, because I there's the sub and the dub, and I'm just watching it in English. All the voice actors are great, and I'm trying to remember who. I think it's maybe like Asta. No, I don't think it's Asta, but there's someone who I recognized who's
there's a lot of crossover between stuff that you watch. I'm pretty sure Funimation does the dub, so it's a lot of stuff that
they're really good though. But so I like it so far. Just the action scene is great. Yeah, it's 100% hooked. Definitely gonna be throwing it on.
Yeah, I like it because it's like, I mean, I love Naruto and One Piece as I'm watching it, but just sometimes it's just too long. And that's what I love about Brotherhood. I think it's like 50 or 60 episodes. So every episode is important, and you have to actually like pay attention.
Yeah. Like there's lighthearted moments that seem like filler, but then like it really hits hard because the story just like, it's crazy.
Yeah. It's not really like filler in like the Naruto sense where they're basically like waiting for the manga to move forward. So they're just putting random episodes out there. It's like just side stuff to develop the characters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's even
really
like
good stuff.
Even episodes themselves, like some Naruto is like one little piece of it is manga. So it's considered like manga slash like your canon slash filler, but it's like 4 minutes of a 22-minute episode, which you don't get with Brotherhood. Yeah.
Yeah. Brotherhood's super tight. And I mean, that's, we were talking about it a little bit on Twitter before you started watching it. That's the difference a little bit between the original series from 2003 and Brotherhood, because when Full Metal Alchemist first came out in 2003, different animation studio, I'm pretty sure. The manga had not finished yet. So basically they had like author permission at a certain point in the manga to basically split off and do their own thing. So the ending to the original 2003 Full Metal Alchemist TV show is entirely different. The plot is entirely different. The ending's entirely different. It goes in a completely different direction.
Yeah, I think they said
than
episode 10
Brotherhood
from
and the
what I
manga
was
did.
reading, just as I was looking both of them up, like
Yeah.
one of the top questions that's usually asked like on Google is like, how is it different from the original? Like, where does it diverge? So it was pretty like common, which is why I want to watch them both.
Yeah,
and
it's,
find a way to
it's I
watch the original,
absolutely
yeah.
recommend both. I mean, it's a lot of the same. It's almost entirely the same characters. There's
Mhm.
very little difference between the characters, but they have different personalities. They have different motivations. They end up in different places. The one back then, I would argue, is probably the darker of the two stories.
Damn.
And it's also like a little bit more personal, a little bit more like everything's a little bit closer. It's a little bit less like world spanning, but they're both absolutely just like the peak of the genre and such good shows.
I wonder who their dad is. Seems like a character that'll come back.
Yeah, that's how I feel about myself too. Who my dad is. You know,
shout out to MQ.
Yeah, shout out my queen. Oh man, just another podcast where I'm diving into
I was gonna say, is this a list
trauma.
night episode?
Is this a list night episode? Man, maybe this will get Thomas and Andrew to watch the Give and Go show. Modai, anything you're watching or getting into these days before we jump into some NBA talk?
No, I think I mentioned it. Nothing watching, but I think I mentioned it. Maybe it was just when me and Ferentinos. But I ended up getting a PS5.
Oh shit, you did? Okay, awesome.
Yeah, and the literal first purchase I made was the Kingdom Hearts package, because we talked about this on Twitter, but that's like Kingdom Hearts 1 is like the GOAT, like the absolute one of one for me.
Sure.
So I blew through the first one and it still holds up. I mean, it's just such a good game. It's so good.
The Kingdom Hearts package, it's like 1.5, 2.5, and 3. So it's got like Chain of Memories, Birth by Sleep, all that
Correct.
shit.
Yeah.
Got it. Most confusing franchise that has ever existed.
I went on like a huge YouTube deep dive because I'm good at
you honestly literally like need to.
Yeah, because even playing it, I don't understand what's going on. So I had to have it explained to me. And now that I'm like, I mean, I ended up skipping the card one. I forget, I think it was Chain of Memories. Couldn't do it. It was too dumb, like the gameplay of it. So I just watched a summary of it. And then the thing that's annoying is the next game, it's like 358 by 2. Like
358 by 2.
Yeah, it's like concurrently, and like the universe goes on at the same time of Chain of Memories. But 1.5, it's not the actual game. It's basically just like a summary of it. So you don't actually play. It just, I don't know if you knew that, but
358 by 2, if I remember correctly, was a phone. It's a mobile game in Japan.
I thought it was DS.
It might be DS. So there's a couple that are phone games, and there's a couple that are DS, and maybe a PSP one, although I don't think so.
Birth by Sleep, I thought was PSP.
Maybe. And so that was part of the issue, is that there are some games in the Kingdom Hearts like franchise that literally never came to America because they were phone games for phone technology that we didn't have at the time.
Yeah, because that makes sense, because I remember playing, I only played as a kid Kingdom Hearts 1 and then 2. So I didn't know nothing in between. I had no knowledge of. So I was
and
like,
two starts off with you playing the protagonist of
358 by 2.
Yeah. And like basically the first 5 hours of that game is a tutorial where you play as that guy and then you don't play as him again.
And I had no idea what was going on. So
because he's also so, oh my God, it's so complicated. Every character has an X in their name, which is like, of all the letters to use, why would you use a fucking X?
But long story short is I watched like a YouTube deep dive explaining everything up until Kingdom Hearts 2. And now I'm into it. Before I didn't care about the story at all. Now I'm into the story. It's like now that it makes sense, I'm like, oh, this is actually a good story. They just did a horrible job. Like, I don't like presenting the story to the universe. I don't know how to describe that, but the story is actually good.
Ferentino, so you're reading a Wikipedia entry of all the different Kingdom Hearts.
I was just saying 358.2 was DS and then Birth by Sleep was PSP, but it's crazy. They have Dream Drop Distance, 1.5
3DS,
X.
Also the fact that they go with like
remix.
1.5 and then 1.5 like it's the most Japanese naming convention, and it makes me want to, like, I don't know if you guys ever watched Neon Genesis Evangelion or Evangelion, excuse me. Go look up the titles for all the Evangelion movies and TV shows. They're fucking absurd. Like, it's the same thing kind of with like different endings and like slightly different plot points. And sometimes it's summarized and sometimes it ends up in a different place. And sometimes it ends up with like a clip show. And there's like 17 iterations of it.
Sounds
and
like
it's
Square Enix.
so fucking stupid.
Yeah, that sounds like Square Enix.
If American developers and filmmakers did shit like this, they would be burned at the stake. They would be put to death.
We're way too dumb for that kind of stuff.
I was gonna say America has messed up a lot of franchises and movies and things too. But I heard
But at least it makes sense in the naming
excited.
convention.
I would say Last of Us, as far as video game adaptations, I heard is great TV show.
I'm
and
excited
then also
for
Vinland Saga is currently, it's like coming out the second season, which I love Vinland Saga.
I saw the promo for that on Netflix. So I got to catch up on that one too.
So my last Kingdom Hearts point is I think when we all get really rich, I think we should pay people to just do an anime show of the Kingdom Hearts story. I think that would be really
sick.
good.
It'd be way more concise because there's so much time just spent fighting around like small areas. That's like, okay, this is 30 hours of a 40-hour game.
I can invest in some Disney content. I mean, I feel like they're just going to keep making money.
I feel like when you say invest in Disney content, Tarantinos, you're talking Rule 34 shit. And I don't know if that's the kind of podcast.
That's Overwatch content.
Got it. Okay. All right. Learn something new about how you feel about Hercules and Megra.
Speaking of cartoons, the Toronto Raptors, good team that's going to be making a lot of moves maybe at the deadline.
Oh yes, good team to be making moves, not a good team.
I was wondering where the connection, how we got from one to the Toronto Raptors.
Honestly, before we jump into more fixed topics, we should talk about the Raptors a little bit because we've kind of avoided doing so by mistake a little bit, but also because of the year they're having.
I think anti-Canada bias.
I just don't want to get bullied by Elliot. That's
right. We don't want to get bullied by Elliot, but every single week he asked us to talk about things as it relates to the Raptors, and every single week at the end of an episode, I'm like, we'll do this next time. So let's talk about them just a little bit. I think they're like 17-23 right now. They're not in a good spot. Obviously, Fred VanVleet is playing an absurd number of minutes. He's been playing an absurd number of minutes for about 3 years straight. Siakam's had his injury issues. OG had his injury issues during their finals run, but he's been relatively healthy since. Where is this team going? Like, Scotty Barnes maybe is figuring it out. You know, he had a sophomore slump.
I was just going to say that.
Yeah. I mean, what is the end goal for this team? If you're Masai and you're Nick Nurse, what team do you want when we get to May?
Yeah, I think they're a game and a half out of the 10 seed. The thing is, like, I can't get out of my head like how the Raptors have just been one of the best organizations, even when it was Kyle Lowry and DeMar DeRozan. Like, they would get cooked by LeBron in the playoffs, but like an incredible organization in terms of like player drafting and player development.
And the Wizards.
They're like a good Wizards, yeah.
They also got swept. They got swept by the Wizards one year.
Was that the Celtics the year they lost?
No, that was actually 2 years prior.
The Hawks.
They got swept by the Wizards, and then John Wall broke his hand and his wrist against the Hawks, and that was like the end of that series. That was the Paul Pierce year.
Yeah.
I call game.
Yeah, that's great. So I'm always just like expecting them to figure it out because that's just what they've done. Like, I think Nick Nurse is an incredible coach. I made the point last year that if you swapped Doc Rivers and Nick Nurse, the Sixers would be title favorites. I still kind of stand by that take from last year, and that the Raptors would be a play-in team because he's so creative, like the way, and their team is also kind of built for the way Nick Nurse seems to like to coach. Like, they're just long and gangly.
My one pushback on that is that Nick Nurse kind of has some of the same problems that a Doc Rivers has, and some of the same problems, which is really the big problem that Tom Thibodeau has, where he will drive his stars into the ground. And I don't know if Embiid and James Harden are the guys. I mean, that's to say, Glenn Rivers is doing that as well. He's also driving them into the ground. So I don't know if that would change.
Yeah, that's actually, so I never knew of that. Has that been a problem in previous years? Because I've only really seen that be a problem this year. I guess
he's been doing it since the 2019 takeover. It's just in 2019, like,
it was everybody but
Kawhi.
It was everybody but Kawhi, and it was a lot of young guys on that team. And then you had guys who were like notorious Iron Men, like Marc Gasol, who basically were down to play every single night. Serge Ibaka, I think, may have been on that team. Yeah, guys that were down to play all the time.
And Gasol was traded. He was a midseason trade.
And as time progressed, he had all these young guys like Fred VanVleet, like OG, like Siakam, who now have had 3 years of 39 minutes per game, like minutes on their legs. So it's all kind of compounding at the same time.
Yeah, that's tough. So anyways, the point I was getting at is I keep expecting them to figure it out, but I feel like the Raptors are smart enough to understand that they're probably like the ceiling of this team. Like if they all play to their potential, is like the 5 seed and probably a first round hard fought series out. And I feel like Masai Ujiri is smart enough to know that that's not worth it. Like, he made the Kawhi trade knowing that like mediocrity is not worth it. So I think they're going to KOC blow it up at the trade deadline is my guess.
Sure.
So
I want.
yeah,
Do you think they get rid of OG? I feel like he's like, I've seen just stuff posted on him about how he's so good at defense and how he would be like a key piece.
He's
to any
incredibly
really
valuable.
like if you take any team that is looking to go like win now mode this year, like
he's
you
Jaylen
want
Brown.
to trade
He
for OG. Yeah,
can fit literally on any type of team. He's like the perfect
And
player.
he's the best one-on-one defender probably in the league right now.
I
Like,
think
and he's on a low contract for his level of production.
which that's what you need, that guy that can guard that Tatum, that KD, that like scoring wing that's just gonna blow it up. Like you need that one person that could guard him. I mean, even Giannis, I feel like he could guard.
I think that would be a mistake, but like, and Siakam probably too, because Siakam's just gotten so much better. But like, and then you're obviously, so I think you build around OG. I mean, I guess I don't know what that ceiling is, but you build around OG, Scotty Barnes, and Siakam, and you get rid of like all the kind of older pieces. And
Gary Trent.
Gary Trent, obviously Van Vliet, and you kind of see what you have from there.
The question is, and I see this one kind of thrown around Twitter a lot, is who's paying for Fred Van Vliet on his current level of production, knowing what injury, like,
did he turn down a contract? Is that like something I've heard?
He turned down a bigger offer. Yeah, which I mean, like, the talent is there, and this is a guy who's bet on himself a couple other times. So like, you have to understand that makes sense for him at the time. I don't think he expected to like compound the current injury and just put the miles on his legs that he has. But like, if I'm a rebuilding team, I don't want him because he's already got more miles on his leg than the average player his age. And if I'm a current contender, what does he do for me that another guard who might be on a better contract doesn't do for me? Like, I just don't see who wants him unless they're attaching picks with it, which sure, anybody will trade if they're getting a couple first round picks.
Yeah, they wouldn't do that. They would just let it ride out. Like they didn't trade Kyle Lowry in the last year of his deal. They're like, whatever, we'll just let it ride out. Yeah, I feel like there's always some team that's like dumb enough. That's like probably like between like in the playing range. That's dumb enough to think, oh, this will be the missing piece. The Wizards. He's going to go to, exactly.
It's honestly a team that I've seen people talking about. So
the Bulls, I mean, like he doesn't really fit that roster, but like a team is dumb like the Bulls. That's like, I mean, the Bulls are horrible, but they're currently the 10 seed, and they literally just went all in on this team like 18 months ago.
Yeah. To that point, I guess we wanted to do our NBA New Year's resolutions at some point, and this kind of does factor into the New Year's resolutions. Although I do want you to explain, are these resolutions for ourselves, Modi, or are these resolutions for teams and GMs?
This is for, I've kind of thought of it as teams and GMs, because for me, it would be like fire Doc Rivers, like, you know, for you to be like blow up the Wizards. So I did it as like, I had one Sixers related one that we talked about last week. The other two are non-Sixers related, but I just did it as like what I would like to see for the betterment of the teams, basically, is how I kind of viewed it.
Let me just get ahead of any others that are going to come up this episode. I'm just going to jump into one really quickly.
Go for it.
If you are a team that should be tanking, commit to the tank. I saw a news article about a day or two ago, and because you brought up the Bulls, and because we're talking about the Raptors, and because we're talking about the Wizards, all of these teams are ones that seemingly every single time they get a big win, it seems to dissuade them from stacking up the losses. And I saw a news article on Reddit about how this is apparently something that is actively happening in the Bulls front office. Basically, every time they go on a losing streak and they end it with a big win, they're like, okay, no, we can make it happen with this
like
team.
Against the Nets, or like
you can't make it happen with those teams. Exactly. The Wizards reeled off a few straight after having their 10-game losing streak. They still had a 10-game losing streak. That is not the team that you need to be putting like that. That's just, it's not reality to look at that team and say, this is a contender. So unless your expectation is at best being an 8 seed, you have to at some point make that hard choice and be like, look, we're not going to be a profitable team. We're not going to be a good team, but we are going to acquire assets, and you got to start moving guys ASAP, because you're going to set the market.
Because it's top 6, right? So those are the teams really. So like the bottom 6 right now are Houston, San Antonio, Detroit, Charlotte, Orlando, and then like it's literally a fight between the Raptors, Wizards, and Thunder right now.
Yeah.
But like the Bulls are 19 and 22. They're only a game out of being in that tank race. So like, yeah, it is like if you're especially one of those fringe teams, I feel like the first 5 mentioned are all in on the tank though. Like
Absolutely. And
yeah.
the Thunder should be in. The Thunder actually are running into kind of the opposite problem where they're arguably too good.
It's the Pacers.
And
problem.
so as much as they, as much as they should be tanking, they've got too many guys who are just actively winning games.
Yeah.
And as long as you've got a guy like SJ who's going to sometimes put up 35 points a night, like there's going to be games that you want to lose as an organization that you're going to end up winning anyways. So they're kind of in a weird place. But every one of those other teams you mentioned, like you have got to be committing. And I hate saying that because I hate advocating losing on purpose, but it's not losing on purpose. Like that's not what tanking should be. It should be development for young players.
2 of those teams are going to be
of
thrilled.
assets.
Like as much as not getting Victor Wembanyama is, like getting Scoot as a consolation prize, I feel like is
from what I've heard, this
incredible.
is like an 8 to 9 player draft. Like even outside of those, like it's a pantheon level draft at the top 2, but you're looking at potentially like a 2003 like situation where you've got guys 5, 6, 7, 8 who are going to be incredible NBA players. And we see this every year. We see more and more guys coming out of the draft and being productive immediately. Johnny Davis notwithstanding. It's okay to throw in the towel before the trade deadline. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah,
fans will understand. People are educated about how assets work in the NBA now.
That was one of mine too. It was the strength for teams like the Bulls and the Wizards to just blow it up. The problem that I think is that we can't understand is just the impact that has on like the people that are actually paying salaries and like that would probably be a net loss. The Bulls have a pretty good home crowd. Thank you, Michael Jordan. The Wizards absolutely don't. So I can imagine
bottom 5 in the NBA for like 10 years.
Yeah. So I can imagine from the owner's perspective, and I'm not necessarily excusing him, but him thinking I have this incredibly expensive asset. Why is it like an operating loss for me? So I think that's the only thing that, I mean, again, I am pro tank. Come on, I'm a Sixers fan. I would be.
You have to be. Yeah, it's in your blood at this point.
I'd be disingenuous.
You guys are the process.
Yeah. I'm almost like, is it worth winning the Super Bowl because you have the last pick in the draft type? No, not actually, but I mean, I
making the playoffs versus not losing your first round game. I mean, like the Giants, do they really need to make the playoffs this year? I think my brother would have been happy. I mean, I guess he's happy to make the playoffs. They've been such shit for so long, but I kind of get your point where like,
I don't know enough about the NFL revenue share when it comes to the playoffs, but I imagine it's better than the NBA revenue
share. I think the NFL in general, like they're set up to where the shittiest franchise is going to make money no matter what.
Like if you're in a playoff game, even if it's just one game, you've got 20 million viewers at one time. Like there are first round playoff games in the NBA that are getting like 2 million viewers.
Yeah, and it's 16 games versus swept. 82. Like,
I think it depends. Like from the Giants' perspective, I think there's some value to like going on a run and making the playoffs. Like the Eagles went on a run last year and made the playoffs, and they got just absolutely curb stomped in the first round by the Bucks. And that's probably what's going to happen. The Giants
to Dallas.
It's going to happen to Dallas. That's a different story because like that's a win, like a win now team, whereas the Giants are like completely devoid of talent. But I think there is value for a team like the Grizzlies. Last year, or even 2 years ago, like there was even though the draft pick, whatever, it was a good thing that they made the playoffs 2 years ago and that they went on the run they did last year. Like I think for a young team, there is some value. For a team like the Wizards or the Bulls, like there's no value. There's like nothing that team gets out of a playoff run.
You look at a Grizzlies roster, you look at John Morant, you look at Desmond Bane, you look at JJJ, you look at
he's been killing it since
Steven Adams. You look at some of the role players that they have and you say, this is a title team. This is a title team when half of the guys that I just mentioned are 24 years old instead of 21, 22 years old. The issue for them is not acquisition of talent. It's just developing that talent. So absolutely at this point, take the weights off, go to the playoffs. If you get swept in the first round, whatever, it's an experience for next year. But when you already have essentially a big 3 or big 4, whatever you want to call them, when it comes to the Grizzlies, you have an MVP potential talent in John Morant. You have to commit to your current pieces because there's no point in continuing to get picks. There's no point in continuing to draft, lottery level players, because at that point, you're just going to have guys eating into each other's minutes.
The West is I'm just looking at the standings. Sorry to bring it. Like I would have absolutely predicted the East, maybe top to bottom, because I'm a Nets homer, so I would have had the Nets up as high in the standings. But Nuggets, Grizzlies, Pelicans, Mavs, Kings, Warriors, Clippers, and Suns are the top 8. Like
it's insane.
I did not.
I will
think
say,
that
I
would
think
be...
we had
Grizzlies
Nuggets,
and-
Pelicans,
Grizzlies and,
Grizzlies.
Yeah,
We
but
had the
just like in
Suns ahead of where they
general,
are. You know, there's teams that we had ahead
it's
of where
kind of
they are.
nuts.
But we had, when we talked about this during our over-unders, we did talk a lot about how we expect these young teams to take the next step.
Mhm.
Tarantino,
I
any
agree. I'll give
comment?
us our, but it's just nuts to actually see it come into play. Like I kind of
Yeah.
thought the Wolves would make that step because I was
I
just a
absolutely,
believer
I
in
had the
Anthony
wins.
Edwards
I had
too,
the
and
Wolves
fact
winning
that-
50 games.
Ferentinos, any comment on the Jazz now being out of the play-in game entirely?
Yeah, I think they should be one of those teams that commits to the tank. I think they should get rid of Jordan Clarkson and just commit. They already have so many picks too. Like I think it's worth it to be one of those top teams, or at least in contention to get a top pick if you're the Jazz. Because pair him with a marketing, like who's playing his best basketball. They're still like one of those organizations that we talked about, like with the Raptors, like with the Pacers, that are always just well put together, that put together a good team. So I think it's worth it for them to just acquire as many assets as possible at this point. Disappointing to see their fall from grace, but you know, like Jordan Clarkson freaking squared up in games now. Like
I think super indicative of where the Jazz are right now is a few nights ago, the Jazz and the Bulls played each other, and it was Lauri Markkanen's return to Chicago. And I got an ESPN notification.
Did you see that almost game winner he had?
So I saw that as well, but I got an
Yeah.
ESPN notification about his poster dunk. I got a number of Twitter notifications about some stuff that he did in the game and stuff that was happening. All of this was for the Jazz players. I got the thing about his potential almost game winner. And then you go and you see that the Bulls won that game. Yeah. The Jazz lost that game, but because they've already at this point, like they've already committed 3 months to being like, oh, the Jazz are new contenders. Now everything has got to feature the Jazz.
They've lost.
Like,
they had a few really.
They're a year away from being
nail-biting
a year
losses.
away. I think the Jazz are going to have like one of the quickest rebuilds in the past 20 years, but it's not this year. It shouldn't be this year. I mean, that was the whole point of acquiring all these picks, was to immediately pivot into being a very young team that can build around some star talent, which apparently Lauri Markkanen is.
Yeah, they're absolutely better than Danny Ainge was expecting them to be at this point.
Yeah. To, again, much like the Thunder, potentially to their detriment, because they might miss out on a top pick and end up with a 5 or 6 guy. But, you know, that's why you do the Ainge thing and you do the Presti thing where you stack the deck as much as possible.
Get a ton of picks,
Get a ton of picks. Couldn't be the Lakers, couldn't be the Wizards. Was at one point the Sixers, and it is not the Nets. The Nets love to sell their picks.
Never been the Nets,
So I say, I don't know
the Nets are like, holy shit, we have picks. Give me your oldest players.
I was gonna say, I don't know if I want this to be my NBA New Year's resolution for the refs or my take of the week, but I think that players that dive in front of other players to go for a charge should be like flagrant 2 out of the game.
Sure.
I think
any recent events that have given you this perspective?
So yeah, I mean,
I love when Ferentinos has repping takes, because they're so clearly based on something that happened within the past like 4 days.
That's what takes are, baby. That's
true. That is what a take is.
There's no consistent. If fucking Kyrie Irving does that next week, he'll be like, yeah, man, that's part of the game.
So but it's 2 guys in particular that always do it: Kyle Lowry and Marcus Smart. And it's just like
2 guys that I do think are dirty players. I'll straight up say it. I think they're dirty.
And also
players.
Grayson Allen does this bullshit, and I don't want to loop him in because I think he's even the worst out of all of them. But like, Hassan Whiteside, who is it? Not Hassan Whiteside. Trying to remember. I saw someone had like a pretty good dunk, and is like a player standing in the lane. Like if you're just like literally standing there under the rim, the player knows that you're there and you're just going to take a charge instead of like going up for contact. Like that's one thing. But if you know that you can get to the spot, it's like the same thing to me as not giving a player any room to land. If you just like see a player tunneling in and then you jump in front of them to go limp and just have the player run into you, like that's fucking bullshit. And it's going to injure players. I mean, KD, it's just, he's built like the Slim Reaper. He's 7 foot. He's so skinny. So like
he's always going to have knee like that. Issues,
it's literally happened three times. Like his MCL injuries have been very similar. But like the play that I thought he got hurt on originally watching the highlights was one where Lowry just jumped right in front of him. And he had, I think, a worse reaction to that play getting hit in the knee than the one he actually did get hurt on. like he ended up playing a little bit after he did get the sprain at first. So that was encouraging.
And then he went
I
into
honestly saw
Butler.
Yeah, Butler. So Simmons played Dion Butler. Butler just kind of came down and just fell on his leg. Like that one was like the kind of freak one, but like the Lowry, I saw that and I was like, again with his bullshit. Just like he talks about how refs get so excited to call that charge. Like how many Raptors games do they end up losing and it doesn't matter? And Lowry makes that play, and it's just like, dude, you didn't even play defense, in my opinion. Like you should have to be able to get in front, set your feet, and like actually stop the player instead of arguably just like diving right in front to just go limp and take a hit and like run into a player, blindside them. Like if they can't land and they end up stepping on your foot and turning your ankle, like that's not giving anyone room to land. I think it's a very dirty play, and I just hate seeing it so much. And it's always Marcus Smart and Kyle Lowry that just
Marcus
come to
Smart
mind.
can eat a dick. I can't I cannot stand Marcus.
I honestly think I dislike Kyle Lowry more than I dislike Marcus Smart.
Well, Marcus Smart, I hate for that reason. And then he's my least favorite type of player who he thinks he's a good shooter and he shoots a bazillion times, but he sucks. But whenever he'll go 1 for 12.
He's a good shooter. Why can't he shoot good?
Yeah. He will let you know if he makes that one.
He does surprise me with how skilled he is sometimes, though. Like there are times where I'm just like,
he's a good passer.
And it was like Marcus Smart, and I was like, okay, like he'll make like a good dribble move and like he'll hit a hezzy, but then he'll take his heat check shot and just completely like brick it.
Marcus Smart literally has more good games than bad by a significant margin, but when he has a bad game, he will lose your team the game because he'll go 1 of 9 from 3.
The Kobe
fouls.
Kobe mentality.
Right. But you're not Kobe.
He lost the game 5 again. It ended up not mattering. He literally lost the game against the Bucks in that game 5 of this series last year. Yeah, my favorite take I've ever had was that the worst thing for the Celtics is if he makes his first 2 shots, because the rest he will go 0 for 15.
You have told us that take before, yeah.
Yeah, and I'll say it next week as well.
Yeah, he'll go 2 for 2, and then he'll end up 3 for 11 or something, or maybe 2 for 11.
And then he'll shoot them right out of the game.
Yeah.
Well, that's
I agree with that.
That's a good take of the week.
Barentinos, I know I pushed back on that one a little bit. I don't disagree with you as it comes to like charges and blocking fouls. I think there needs to be some sort of nuance to it. I don't know if there's a certain amount of time that a player needs to be planted. Like it's so hard because the game moves so fast, right? So their whole thing is as long as you're outside the restricted zone and you have planted your feet and you're no longer moving and you are not actively like doing anything to the offensive player, then that's a charge. But there needs to be a little bit more nuance than that because like you said, I mean, a guy's got a full head of steam. He's coming through the lane. Somebody literally leaps in front of him. And just because they got set a millisecond beforehand, which is something that we only know now because of instant review, that's a charge, even though it's far more risky for the offensive player who now is going to take a tumble to the ground. Like the defensive player knows going into it what they're going to do. They're going to land on their ass. They're going to take on the biggest part of their body. Offensive players going through somebody, they're potentially going up in the air, and then you're calling a foul on them. I agree with you. I think it really increases the risk for a lot of these guys particularly when they call a charge and a guy's already up in the air. And you take away the basket, you take away the potential foul, you take away their landing zone because somebody just fell under it. Like, I don't know. There's a way to improve this rule that I don't know off the top of my head, but people smarter than me can figure it out.
So what if we just got rid of the charge entirely? It was only a blocking foul. There was no
That's
charge.
Also an argument to make because if somebody fucking calls a charge, like if you're playing on like the blacktop and somebody tries to draw
no
a charge,
one gives you
exactly
that.
Someone's throwing hands. Like that's not a thing that exists.
It's not a basketball
for
play.
99.9% of people. It's not a basketball play.
Exactly.
It's a foul baiting play.
Yeah.
So like people will literally slap the spit out of your mouth if you do some shit like that.
As you
get rid of it. Yeah. It's bitch made. Like it's literally not a real part of the game. So I think get rid of it. Like I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah, that's a take I've had as well. Just get rid of the charge. I think there's no
3 for 3. Let's smash it.
This is a rare time that I guess we're in agreement about things like take fouls and all that too, but usually I like to push back on these because I'm like, oh, you just want this for the Nets because my team's not competitive.
One for the league. And just like
I think really it would make the product better. I think we're missing out on a lot of potential like poster dunks and stuff because guys pull back at the last moment to try and avoid that shit. And we're just missing out on entertainment, and we're increasing the risk of injury.
And how many games are like the last 2 minutes is like a block charge review that just totally reviews the
completely kills the momentum of the game. I mean,
and again, this would be nice if they actually were allowed to play defense, then that would limit people trying to foul bait and get turnovers that way too. Like there's that. Like I'm shocked that they reviewed it and still said that like Royce O'Neal didn't foul Jimmy Butler on that game-winning shot, because at any other point in the game, I think they call that a foul easily. And like, you know, like it was kind of bang bang. If you're calling that, like you talked about how like on the blacktop, like that might not always get the call, but it was like physical play. They allowed it to play through. That's one
and Butler
thing,
didn't fight it, which like, I mean, you got to give him a little bit of respect for that. But at the same time, like 90% of stars would have fought that.
Are going to be like,
not that it would have. Like that was a legitimate hard foul. He should have gone to the line. He probably would have won the game, or at least sent it to OT. Like that's
one thing where it's like, I kind of agree. Let him play like the last 2 minutes, like do that. But then also it's like, okay, you still need to call it when it's a foul. Like that probably should have been a call. But at the same time, like maybe setting the tone. And I mean, I'm very anti this because the Nets are a great jump shooting team. And in the playoffs, when players are allowed to be a little more physical, a la PJ Tucker's bitch ass, just fouling KD on every jump shot that he took. And then they don't call it. Like at least it sets the tone though. At least it's like, okay, you're going to be a little more physical and that'll be fine. Defenders can play defense. You don't have to do that cheap charge bullshit to get a call.
There may be a consistency of what our NBA New Year's resolutions are, because this does lead perfectly into my next one. And it's another one for the refs. And it's kind of a twofold thing. It's consistency of foul calls. And I mean that in two respects. One, like you just mentioned, where you call fouls the same throughout the game. Yeah. Otherwise, you're essentially like putting guys in a position where they don't know if something is going to get called as a foul throughout the course of one single game. And, you know, maybe you're doing it because of the spread. Maybe you're doing it because you're trying to get a specific result. I'm not saying a specific thing about that. I'm just saying we all see it. We all know about it. We all know it's happening. It's fucked up. Beyond that, however, is when they talk about their points of emphasis at the beginning of each season, and they like some hand checking fouls that they were doing, like the carries that they were doing at the beginning of the season that were fucking up Jordan Poole's game. Number of things that they talk about at the beginning of the season, and then they implement those foul rules for about 3 weeks.
Just ignore
and then inevitably people stop talking about them, and the NBA immediately stops calling them. You have to call these things the entire year, and they will work their way out of the game going forward, because guys will know that they cannot. We've seen it in multiple years with the way that James Harden plays, with how they're calling him tightly at the beginning of the season, and then by December they're not calling him the same way. Like, if you're consistent with these calls, the product will improve, because guys will stop thinking that they can get away with shit, and they'll adjust their game accordingly.
Yeah, I mean, like one rule that hasn't been kind of phased out was giving people, like the Kawhi rule, give people a spot to land. Like that's kind of been phased out of the game, and now that's like a call that they make consistently, and now people aren't doing that as much. So you're right. I mean, these players are smart. They're going to adapt.
Yeah, and they also, like, the point is to win, right? So they're going to do shit that they know is not part of the game if it means they're going to win, like James Harden and his like Trae Young. Like, these guys will do this shit as long as they can get away with it, because while for us it's a spectator sport, for them it's their job, and winning matters to their job.
Are we not going to mention the ultimate foul baiter, Joel Embiid?
Joel Embiid, yeah, another guy.
No, but I mean,
don't know how much I could talk about Joel Embiid.
I think he comes up every single episode.
Well, I mean, you are a Sixers fan, so
I did not bring him up.
You know who else comes up? Player. Kevin Durant. You know who else comes up? How much I hate the Wizards.
LeBron.
We haven't talked about LeBron at all. No.
Yeah,
we should be.
Yeah, I mean, the Lakers, they had the longest win streak in the NBA for a bit until the Nuggets just beat them last night. They had 5 in a row.
Yeah, I mean, they rested LeBron. Like, it was, they were 13-point dogs before the game. Like, everyone knew it was a scheduled loss. Even if he played, it was a scheduled loss. Jokic had a perfect shooting game from 3, from 2, and from the line.
That's insane.
I think he had 16 assists. He may have had like 1 turnover.
I saw the spin move, then pass like in
to Aaron Gordon.
That was
freaking insane.
I am so.
I think he's going to win
Aaron
MVP
Gordon
again.
On that team. I think he will too.
Yeah. You think he's going to win this third in a row?
I think
he's more deserving this year.
Yeah, if the Celtics hold on to the 1 seed, I could see maybe Tatum having an argument, but like, yeah, like I kind of agree with you. Like, I think Jokic is playing better this year than he was in his MVP year last year. The Nuggets
And
look like a way more formidable team too.
I'll say I think the Nuggets, I think he hard carried them more last year. And I think like the level of effort that he was putting into every single game was greater, although I don't know if he was necessarily playing better. His stat lines were just absurd every fucking night. This year, the team is better and they're the best team in the West. And he's still playing it close to, like, he's playing at a more efficient level. And he's letting his teammates do more. Yeah. Like,
and what's his face? Jamal Murray.
Jamal Murray's
Aaron Gordon playing
form. Yeah.
like you talked about how he's playing like an elite number 2, like an elite role player, and just
KCP is continuing to show that he's one of the premier 3-and-D players in the league, as long as you don't let him dribble too much. Like Bones Highland sometimes is the best player in the league, and sometimes he's the most inconsistent worst player in the league. It's a really good team this year, and I think this is the best shot they've had since probably the bubble at maybe actually getting to a finals berth.
Yeah, and until Jamal Murray went down, I think they had a shot that year. And now, it's the best chance they've had since, for sure.
Because the Murray Jokic pick and roll is just when he's on 3 too, like it's ridiculous.
And the chemistry that he and Aaron Gordon have, and Aaron Gordon's ability being a big, strong, kind of tweener between a 3 and a 4, who's able to cover for a lot of the stuff that Jokic would normally be doing as your center. Like Aaron Gordon is down there banging with centers so that Jokic doesn't have to on a lot of plays. And he's strong enough to do so. I mean, you saw the thing the other day about probably with LeBron talking trash to him.
Yeah, when he was like,
being like, you're not the only dude in this league that lifts. Like Aaron Gordon is pound for pound, probably one of the strongest guys in the league. And he's not like the heaviest dude. I think he's like 235, 240.
Zion's still probably the heaviest, right?
But I mean, pound for pound, Zion, I think lost a lot of weight, but he
maybe
might be
Embiid, actually.
He might be the literal strongest guy in the league for his like level of weight. I don't know. I mean, he's got a lower center of gravity than all these dudes. But Aaron Gordon is not going to get out muscled by very few guys, maybe a couple centers, and that's it. Embiid would. Jokic, if you wanted to, would. LeBron would. Giannis
just insane.
Would.
A 38-year-old LeBron.
Yeah, I mean,
crazy.
38-year-old LeBron whose averages might actually go up.
Yeah, along with the counting stats this year, like I think there's 8 players that are averaging 30 points. We've never had a year that I think have had more than 3.
Yeah. Which, we talked about it the past couple episodes about that being kind of my big complaint with how metrics are changing and how counting stats are kind of broken right now. And it's something that the league is being very intentional about this. Like if you're going to watch a couple games, you're going to see shit's inflated.
Yeah.
It's a much like the US economy right now. Everyone's dealing with inflation.
Rates keep going up. It's not good.
Yeah. Well, I guess you would know that better than most. That's true.
Yeah.
Any other NBA New Year's resolutions that you guys want to note? I know you've got a couple.
Yeah, I hinted at mine in our group chat, and I feel like this is going to get me people calling me an old man yells at cloud type of take, which I'm comfortable with. But it's about the Grizzlies.
I'm fine with that.
And I like the Grizzlies. I'm pro Grizzlies. I like them. I like their team. They're incredible. They're fun. Sure. Maybe shut up a little bit.
Team Warriors over.
I would say shut up a lot. I'm willing to add on to that one. And
I love Klay Thompson being like, I have like 4 rings. Fuck off. Exactly. You guys haven't done shit.
Talking shit is good. It's good for the sport. It's fun. But you can't have I'm fine in the West. Dylan Brooks talking shit about Klay, and then they just laid an egg on Christmas against the Warriors.
Yeah.
The corpse.
They looked like shit.
I'm sorry. You're not allowed to talk for the rest of the year after that. You lose your privileges to talk shit after that. And again, this sounds like old man. Like, what the fuck have the Grizzlies won? It reminded me, and Russillo made this point. This is years ago when Embiid was trolling the Warriors. We didn't want to pull the Warriors and blow a 3-1 lead. And Russillo's like, the fuck have you won? Who are you to?
Yeah. Sorry, dude, you didn't even make it to the finals. Shut the fuck up.
Yeah, exactly. So they talk so much shit about the Warriors, who literally eliminated from the playoffs last year, took them out of the playoffs. Just shut up a little bit. I'm not asking for a lot, just a little bit.
Yeah.
They got a lot of that arrogant kind of swagger at times. And it's just
they're so different from the grit and grind Grizzlies.
Yeah.
Like there's elements, like particularly when Steven Adams is given a lot to do on the team, that are a little bit similar to what they were doing with the grit and grind, but the personalities, like that was the quietest, most outside of Zebo, like potentially being a criminal, like that was the quietest, most low-key team. Like Conley didn't talk.
I was just
Gasol
gonna say
didn't
Conley,
talk.
Yeah,
Tony Allen didn't talk. Like none of those guys were running their mouths. They were just winning games, and they weren't getting voted to all NBA team. They weren't getting all-star ballots, whatever. So maybe there's a positive to talking all this shit, is that people know your name, but you've won less than that team. So shut up.
exactly. That's like, I think this is generally good for the league. I just think at some point it's maybe shut up a little bit. That's all.
Yeah,
I thought I was going to get more pushback from that.
No, they do need to bump their brakes a little bit. I
So
mean,
you
like
don't see-
like you said, it's fun, but it's fun within reason. Like
Yeah.
you got
I don't see the Cavs talking that shit. Like I feel like that's the kind of East
Yeah, that's
equivalent
a good
team. Like if they were
comparison,
just
yeah.
getting
Yeah.
it, and I think the Cavs maybe like are just as kind of talented as the Grizzlies right now. But like if they were just going at every
if not
team,
potentially more so.
going at the
Yeah.
Bucks, like you can't do shit, blah blah. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
just like, what the
Yeah,
fuck?
I'm fine.
Like,
Imagine Donovan Mitchell. Yeah, no, I'm fine in the East. Or like Darius
Yeah.
Garland. Like I'm fine in the East.
Yeah. There was, I hate to bring this back to the Wizards, but you guys might remember this during that really good Wizards season, really good, I say in quotes, 5 years ago, where they had that beef with the Celtics, and they all wore black to a game and they called it a funeral game for the Celtics. And the Wizards won that game. But had the Wizards lost that game, they never would have lived it down. Not a single player on that team would have lived it down. That's essentially what the Grizzlies are doing when it comes to the shit they talk about the rest of the league. Like, you talked shit for 6 months about the Warriors, and then you matched up with them on the biggest NBA day of the year, and they beat the brakes off of you.
Without Clay.
So
Or sorry,
until you
without
get
Steph.
back to the playoffs, shut the fuck up.
Yeah, you lose your talking shit privilege. Not even did they lose to the Warriors. They lost with
You got beat by a bunch of old men.
in Wiggins. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
and like if they didn't talk all that shit, maybe Clay doesn't go at Dylan Brooks as hard as he did. Maybe the Warriors
Yeah.
don't play as like, and that's fine. Like you want to get your team.
It's bulletin board material. Like,
Yeah.
don't give teams that have won 4 titles bulletin board material, because clearly they can prove their shit.
Yeah, even without their 2 of their best players.
Yeah.
and insane. And even in the West, when they're healthy, like their starting lineup has the best plus minus and is the most efficient in the NBA. Like as bad as I could still see this team beating like the Nuggets in the playoffs, and like when they're
Sure.
fully healthy, making it look easy at times, just because
the Warriors,
yeah, it's like
the
they
Warriors
just-
are a
when
team
they're on
that
and
if
hitting
they
jump
flip a
shots,
switch, yeah.
Pretty sure they're still
and
betting
Steph Curry
favorites
is
to
Steph
win the
Curry.
finals.
Like it's crazy.
I mean, there was periods last year where they weren't good. There was periods the year before. There's been periods outside of obviously the KD years and then the 73 game year where they had like
Yeah.
stretches where they didn't look like a very good team, and then everybody locked in and they would win like 12 straight, and they'd get
It's
to the
just-
playoffs and they would just murder people.
their shooting just doesn't go cold in the playoffs when like a lot of teams do. Like they're just the way that
Yeah.
they're built and the way their
The
offense is built.
expectation is the best shooter of all time has to go cold, and a top 10 shooter of all time has to go cold, and everything
It's-
around them also has to fail.
Like Zach
Yeah.
Lowe is a big thing for a lot of his free agents. It's like every team needs a guy that can shoot off screen, like while on the run. Like that's like
Mhm.
a lot of what he talks about is like players that are able to do that and have that ability. That's literally the Warriors, like as a team, and no one's better at doing it than them.
And they're
Maybe
not
the
even-
Kings though this year are looking pretty good.
Yeah, you just had heard of them.
They lit the beam again last night.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Warriors
team
aren't even in
slaps.
they're out of the play-in now. They're like the 6th. I mean, granted, that has a lot to do with
They're
the
the
West
5th
being.
seed right now.
Look
It's
at, yeah,
kinda
I mean, the
nuts.
West is 1.5 games between a 5 seed and an 11 seed, I think.
Yeah.
So
But just the fact that without Steph and with how horrible their start to the year was, the fact that they're the 6th seed. I mean,
yeah,
they're going to make a run.
they're gonna make it. They always do, and
Yeah.
I'm sick of it. I can't wait for all of those guys to retire. I mean, like there was a point where I was like, "Fuck yeah, I love Steph Curry," and now I'm like, "Go away!" Like
almost
you
10
and all your
years.
teammates and your fucking Silicon Valley ass, particularly Andre Iguodala. Go the fuck away.
He just shows up in the playoffs. I mean, he takes a nap for 9 months and then
Yeah,
shows
and
up
he gives interviews, and I'm like, "Oh yeah, I remember. You're a dickhead. Like you're annoying.
Yeah,
Go
I mean, the most
get
undeserving.
mad at
finals
your daughter
MVP.
for wanting to play basketball again." Fucking
Sixers
douchebag.
legend Andre Iguodala.
Yeah,
Yeah, they're really the only AI that ever played for the Sixers.
Yes, correct. The best initials of AI. That's correct.
Yeah. Any other New Year's resolutions you guys want to
No,
jump
I had
into?
3. I gave them all.
Okay, cool.
I do
Valentino's
have
got
a-
any? Oh,
No,
go ahead.
No, I'm good on my New Year's resolutions.
I was gonna
All right,
say
Noda.
I have a take of the week that's not NBA related.
Okay.
I think it's TV show related. When Stranger Things is said and done, it's going to be viewed as like Game of Thrones level, one of the best TV shows of all time.
Really?
They haven't missed, to be
have-
honest. I
every
feel like
season has
every
hit.
season is really good, which even like I kind of think, as far as Netflix hits goes, Cobra Kai might be up there too. It's one of my favorites. It's
Started
freaking
on
amazing.
Started
Yeah,
on YouTube.
I do remember watching on YouTube TV, but I kind of agree with that and I've been like kind of waiting for them to have that like kind of fallout and like expecting it almost just because a lot of Netflix shows flame out. But now
You
I
may
agree with that.
May
Stranger
recall
Things
they had
is-
that really bad episode in season 2.
Yeah.
Where 11 goes and meets like 6 or whoever it was. I don't remember which one of them was.
I didn't mind that one off.
That episode sucks.
Had that
It's
superhero kind
it's a
of
bad
thing.
episode, but the whole thing was that was supposed to be like that. The entire intention was to spin that off into its own show, and the reaction to that episode was so negative
So
that they were like,
bad.
"We're not doing that. Like, we're no chance."
Yeah, I guess because where I thought that was gonna go was like, I guess they kind of like made the story up in the most recent season with Vecna. Like I kind of like I was like, so where are the other people like kind of like aspect to that?
That's what I thought. I mean, this is not related to my take, but that's what I thought season 2 was going to be about. Cause like the very first scene of season 2 was Six doing like her powers on someone.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, sick. Like this season's going to be about like the other kids. And then you find out why.
Yeah.
No spoilers. But
Yeah. I mean, look, season 2 came out.
No, I meant
4 years
about season 4.
Oh, sure.
Yeah,
I don't know. I mean,
again, it depends on how it ends. And like, I mean, Game of Thrones had a really shitty ending, and it's still viewed as like one of the best shows ever. But I think because it did, I don't know, because it wasn't on the same level as Game of Thrones, it needs to have a good ending.
So I'm just talking. Here's a take. Hollywood, don't think you're the smartest, hottest fucking shit in the world. Just literally do what works. And I'm talking about The Witcher. Like you had Henry Cavill be like, I want to do and be Geralt and do everything, and the books are great, like the story is great, and they're just like, nope, my idea is better. Like fucking Game of Thrones, Barristan the Bold literally survived how he died in the show. He's like one of my favorite characters, and the fucking douchebags were just like, huh, we knew that he was alive, so we wanted to kill him even more. It's like everyone in Hollywood thinks they're hot shit. It's like you have the exact like game script. It's already there for what's going to be good, and you just cannot like adapt it. And it's so bad. That's why literally Lord of the Rings, I think, is one of the greatest movie adaptations of a book of like all time. And watching the extended editions, all they really cut of the movie is just like Tolkien lines for like speeches that other characters had, which I think is great and like explains a lot of the story. But still, like reading the book and watching those films, I'm like, yeah, like that's exactly how it should be like translated if you have to do it in a movie format versus a show. But God, just don't overthink it, fucking Hollywood. I
mean, there's two perspectives there. And I think I go back and forth depending on what the property is. And I'm glad you used Lord of the Rings as an example. Lord of the Rings, plot beats are largely the same across the books and the movies. Mm-hmm. But go back and read the books again. Aragorn has he has no flaws, but B, there's like no questioning about his destiny to become King of Gondor. He doesn't go through any of that character development. And part of it is because they wanted to have a protagonist outside of Frodo and I guess Sam to focus on. And if you have Viggo Mortensen, use Viggo Mortensen to do kind of a more dramatic telling of the character. But maybe a full third of those movies is about Aragorn struggling with his destiny. And if you go read Fellowship all the way to Return of the King, like, at no point is that dude fucking struggling with his destiny. He's like, I'm going to be the King of Gondor. Like at that point, he's almost 100 years old. Like there's no struggles with him. He's like,
which they say in the movies,
let's bring back Numenor. Let's do this shit.
Yeah, the Numenor stuff, that was something that didn't that kind of came up, like just knowing the books, reading it. But like so I just watched the extended versions.
It's a deleted scene in
I
think Fellowship or in Two Towers.
87 years old.
Yeah.
She's like, oh
Yeah.
shit. She's like, because
he's got
he's
that.
like to Aowen, he's like, yeah, I fought in a war with your grandpa. She's like,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah, that was in the extended version. I've never read the books, but I've recently watched all 3 of the extended versions.
And
To
I'll
the
say-
point though about Hollywood changing things, I think there is definitely an overemphasis on subverting existing material and also just subverting audience expectations, which I think is like,
I don't need to be shocked, but I agree.
there's some times where subversions are a good thing, particularly if you're trying to make like a critique of the genre itself, where like if you look at a lot of like M. Night Shyamalan movies, there's times like there's a lot of things that he did that subvert the horror and thriller genre that
Avatar.
There are times where it works and there's times where it really doesn't work.
Absolutely.
And I mean, it's a big part of his filmmaking structure.
Yeah.
But then there's other times where you have things like Game of Thrones, where they, for the last 2 seasons entirely, the whole thing is just to subvert expectations. And it's like, these stories are not good because George R.R. Martin is subverting expectations. There are subversions, but essentially he's just writing a fantasy version of the War of the Roses, and he's just doing it really, really well. Like, subversions are not why people are into this.
We just want to see Jon Snow versus the Night King.
That said, there are times where it's good. There's times where it adds to the media, particularly like, I think there's times where you can make the justification that you should not have a 1-to-1 retelling of a book or a comic or something like that. Look at The Boys. The Boys comic is not even remotely comparable to the show in terms of quality. It's just like super gritty, super edgy. It insists upon itself too much, where it's basically just trying to be like too edgy for you all the time. And then the show is significantly better while still being edgy. So it goes both ways, much like me. I get the perspective. Definitely, like, Netflix fucks this up more than a lot of people do, because they do an entire season, they drop it all at once, and then they have like 2 years before they even start filming the next season, where they're just taking in data, which I don't think is a good way to make art.
Well, you're not running a corporation, Griffin.
You're right. I'm not. No one cares about my like ideas on their share prices.
But I think like, obviously
what they're doing is not working. They're losing properties.
Like, there are ways to tell a story. Like, obviously filmmakers do it differently than like if you could do a Netflix show of everything, or like, honestly, like, like with anime, they're basically, the comics are like storyboards for what the show should be. So like, to see it come to life is really cool, but like, essentially if you read it, you kind of know how it's going to play out. I don't know. They're just, The Witcher is brutal. That was like one of my favorite shows, like at least the first season. I tried to get into the second season. It wasn't as good, but it was still good. And they just like completely butchered it. And then, Game of Thrones was, I don't know if I'll ever get over how terrible that ended.
Yeah. My understanding with Game of Thrones was that like the 2 showrunners, like the D brothers or whatever, they were just like, we're
dickhead and douchebag.
We're going to go do Star Wars. And then they got shit canned from Star Wars. So I think like HBO was like, you can make it as long as you want. Like, we'll give you 10 seasons if you want. And they're like, nah, we're just going to make like 3 seasons into one.
I forgot.
They had another deal. I don't know if you guys saw this or remember this when it came out. They had another deal with HBO when they were still doing Game of Thrones, where they had this show that they were going to be making called Confederate. That was going to be about essentially like a modern day Civil War in America. And they were going to HBO was going to dedicate like hundreds of millions of dollars to this. And the internet reaction to it, probably like 2017, was so vitriolic that they were like, we're going to cancel this. We're not
because of the two like the showrunners.
No, because of how
I think the idea too, don't get me wrong,
how potentially negative that topic can be, particularly when it's told by 2 white men.
Yeah.
Okay.
They were going to be the showrunners for this like modern day potential like slavery focused.
Well,
that's what I thought it was.
Their perspective on how those.
I thought it was if the South won, how modern day life
was. It was it going to be the South? Okay, so
which is even worse.
Yeah,
isn't there
arguably worse
with World War II? Like if Germany.
There's Man in the High Tower.
Yeah,
which is based off of a book series. Yeah, the Nazis win.
Yeah, I know that's obviously not the same thing, but the idea. Yeah,
which again is a concept that you have to do really well to make it work, or else it's super. I mean, that's kind of what For All Mankind is. Not that the Soviets are the same as the Nazis, but For All Mankind is the Cold War goes longer because they didn't lose the space race. I I would keep D&D away from properties like that, because they clearly, when they're not following somebody else's game plan on how to write something, they don't really have a lot of nuance to how they write.
Just hire George R.R. Martin to just give you the story.
Who better than Brown the Broken?
Hire the dude that made the all Shift X videos. Like, it's just insane how many content creators there are out there. And like, how does no one, like, I don't know if I'd have the ego to be like, oh, like this needs to be me. I need to make this. Like, if you're someone like Community and Dan Harmon, for example, like he wrote everything. So it's like, I get that he wants his show to go one way, but I'm like, how is this shit gonna end? And I read something online, I'd be like, that dude's a genius. Let me get him a job and like give him a writing credit, and your show's incredible. Like, I don't know, like let people do the work for you. I don't know. Maybe that's just a take from me.
There's
Work
good and bad to that.
not
Obviously,
harder.
you need to be like consistent with character and all that. But Stranger Things, to the point earlier, Stranger Things, some of these characters have stayed alive, like Steve, because of fan reaction to them, because they were so popular and they've become a bigger part of the show. So there's definitely a fine line that you have to walk when it comes to creating anything, where it's like, yes, take feedback, death of the author, all that shit, but also like stick to your guns somewhat, because just turning it into like stupid bullshit that fans are into is going to end up making a bad show, because there's a reason why they don't do it professionally.
Yeah,
what's Nancy seeing Jonathan?
It cannot be fan service.
Yeah. Anything else you guys want to jump? I have got a what are we doing here? If we want to do it real quick before we get out of here.
Let's hear it.
I like that.
All right. Yeah. So like I mentioned last week, every so often we're going to have a segment called What Are We Doing Here? Where one of us, or potentially multiple of us, talk about something that is just completely baffling to us as it relates to either the NBA, sports, or something going on in our lives, pop culture, whatever it may be. We kind of just did it a little bit with the take of the week as it relates to like Game of Thrones and stuff like that. But my What Are We Doing Here this week is about gambling and the NBA. And this is a bigger question about sports as a whole, but the degree to which we talk about gambling and sports betting, and I'm sorry, Moda, I know you work for a company that does this. So
I don't think I can comment on this.
You don't need to comment on this. And this is not me taking away from sports betting or anything like that. This is me saying the way that our conversations have changed about sports and the way that we talk about games now, both in terms of the way that we preview them and the way that we talk about them after the fact, where everything has become so consumed by gambling terms, where we talk about the spread, or we talk about somebody's PRA, or we talk about different things that all have monetary values associated with them, is, in my opinion, ruining sports talk discourse, and is completely like eliminating any sort of like nuance from the discussions that we have about games before they happen, where we used to talk about particular, and obviously these things still happen, but more and more you're seeing everybody, rather than talking about specific matchups or about head-to-head player comparisons or things like that, we talk about, the Cavs are playing the Jazz tonight and they're only 2.5 point favorites. And, part of that's because, the Jazz, despite being on a losing streak, are really good at home, but you're taking into account things that you only are taking into account because of gambling results. And I'm getting really fucking sick of every single person in sports media talking about things as it relates to gambling, and starting every single one of their shows with go gamble with Bet Online, or go gamble with FanDuel, or go gamble with DraftKings, or go gamble with so-and-so, because there's a lot of people that are consuming your content who are going to do that, who should not be doing it. Just like you shouldn't be fucking preaching alcohol to everybody, just like you shouldn't be preaching cigarettes to everybody, just like you shouldn't preach pharmaceutical drugs to everybody. Not everyone is built to gamble. So when you turn sports talk into gamble, it ends up destroying the sport. And you're seeing it in MMA right now, where there's this whole controversy going on with this guy, James Krause, who was a coach who also had a Discord channel where he gave out gambling picks, and he would log into other people's gambling accounts to bet for them during events. And his fighters were losing events where they were not disclosing that they were injured going into fights, and he was betting on their opponents.
Yeah, that's
like, we see this happening throughout everything. And if we think that it's not going to get worse compared to how it was in the early 2000s with the Kings and the Lakers or what have you,
Tim Donaghy,
it's going to get worse if we continue to just stay on this train of everything has to be about the line. Everything has to be about how do I make money on this event? Just watch sports sometimes. It's way more fun.
I mean, the NFL.
What are we doing here?
Love that take because I think like just sports in general. So when it just became legal in Maryland, first sporting event I watched with everyone was just glued to their phones. All about like certain players over unders, like little things like just watching. And I think like there's some positive to it. Like it's kind of cool to watch a meaningless game when you have things to bet on and like little
you give yourself stakes.
Little moments like that. Yeah, like that's cool. But I agree, like humans have no self-control. If you're going all in like they have been going all in, like it's going to create so many problems that we haven't really seen yet.
Before Modai says anything, I want to say one more thing really quickly. The worst thing that I see is when I see people rooting against their own team because they have money on their opponent or because they have money on the under or something like that. And like, I get it, you know, you're trying to make a profit or it's part of your job or whatever. Like you're obviously you're divorcing your fandom from your ability to make a profit. I get it. Keep it off Twitter, unless it's literally your job, in which case you're a content creator, whatever. Like, I don't need somebody getting mad at me in my mentions because the Wizards won, but they didn't cover. Like, shut the fuck up.
Oh yeah. I get that all the time. I'll be excited about an Eagles win. People are like, yeah, but you know, I had whatever.
Yeah. Sorry. The Eagles only won by a field goal instead of by 6.5. And it's like, literally like lose my number. Like get out of it.
Yeah. Like pre-odds jam before I was like working in sports betting, my rule was that like, it would never affect my fandom. Like I would never root for a betting outcome over my team's outcome, basically.
Right.
I mean, to your point where like not everybody can handle it 100%. I think the problem is there's so much money in it. Like it's the same problem you mentioned with like cigarettes and alcohol. There's too much money in it, which is the problem.
We love our vices.
And the people like, and I mentioned this on Twitter and I don't want to make it a whole thing, but like some guy commented on the YouTube video was like, I swear to God, Matt, if these don't hit, like my kids won't have dinner. And I'm like, dude, that's whether you're joking or not, that's too far and not funny.
Yeah. Because it's gambling. I understand that you think you have an edge on the book or whatever. You don't, unless like,
there's no such thing
unless you're the top like 0.01% of bettors, but you're probably not. If you're betting food money, you are not in that position. You need to make better financial choices.
Yeah, I think the thing for me, which I think is a minor pro, I mean, that stuff is like, there's no way to argue that part of it. I do think like if your team sucks, like my first year gambling, the Eagles were terrible. It was the COVID year, right. 2020. There, I was like, okay, like I can at least have other things to care about. Like maybe I'll put in a future on the Chiefs and then I'll root for the best team in the NFL. So it can give you rooting interests when your team sucks. Or if you're a Browns fan, you fucking trade for Deshaun Watson. Like I don't want to root for the Browns. Like I like to have something else to care about. I do think there are benefits, but it should all be in the vacuum of like fun benefits, not like,
I mean, that's not unlike fantasy where you find players to follow because, you know, there's some stakes in it. And I get that. And I'm totally fine with that. And I'm fine with sports betting as a concept, but this obsession that apparently everybody has with it now. And it like, you guys can see it in the past 3 or 4 or 5 years, it seemingly gets worse every single year.
Well,
it's on the screen constantly because they all have deals with the big brands now. Like it's making me like sports less, even though I'm not betting.
Yeah, it's because like it first became legal in the United States 5 years ago, like a legally regulated sports book. And then more and more states are now legalizing it. So it's become like the money, it's more and more lucrative, basically. I think that's what are we doing here? I'm going to give mine. I'll make it really, really quick because it's like so far out of the news cycle now. But just about the James Harden report on Christmas about him possibly walking to the Rockets, I thought was
I do remember.
I thought it was real. I thought that was either them putting pressure on the Sixers to make a trade, or it was just some completely made up bullshit.
I think that Harden's camp leaked it to Woj, basically being like, well, if we don't win this year, like I could, if you're not going to give me the max, like I could walk.
Right.
Which I think is like for someone that's his like career is defined by coming up short in the playoffs. The fact that it came out on Christmas.
Yeah,
it's the total loser shit. I think it's like, hey, in 7 months from now, I might walk if you're not going to pay me the max. Well, it's like, well, you're 34. You've gotten significantly worse every year in the past couple of years. Like, yeah, go to Houston, man. Like, live out your career in fucking strip clubs, not winning. If that's what you want to do.
Didn't he take a pay cut this year too?
This year,
wasn't that was like a big story about how awesome
Yeah.
and team friendly he is
to build a better team.
Yeah.
And I think part of that's also like image rehab, because when you make that much money, like a few $1 million, it's probably worth it.
Yeah.
There was also one, not to add on.
That's
to
why
your
he
point.
pays for so many women's medical school bills and things like that.
But there was an Adam Schefter tweet a few days ago about what's his name from the Bills game being placed on IR.
Oh, Hamlin. Oh, but they're like, don't worry, we're going to give him his like full like that.
No, that second part's fine. But the tweet that Schefter had was literally the Bills had placed him on IR. It's basically literally just designed to get engagement off of the event. And it's like everyone fucking knows that the guy's going on IR.
He's not going to be playing in the playoffs.
He's not playing in the playoffs. No one thinks this man at the time, who I think may have still been in a coma, is going to be playing in the playoffs. Like, engagement is not worth it. And there was the Skip Bayless tweet recently, which I think a lot of people misconstrued what Skip was saying in that tweet.
It was like a
because
thread of tweets, right?
It was the
Like,
messenger.
I think it was,
Yeah, it was because of who said it and because of the way that he ordered the tweet. And I don't think the content was wrong, but it's like, read the fucking room, dude. No one needs this. Like, understand the time and the place to have these conversations. You have a TV show. Talk about it on your TV show.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this on Twitter, and I know we're coming up on time here, but the thought that we have to have some sort of newsbreaker is the stupidest thing in the world. I know we talked about it with Woj.
Yeah.
like
Woj,
the draft
Shams, all-
too.
You
Shams,
have
yeah.
to tweet the Friday before Christmas that Miles Bridges is getting interest from teams and he was involved in a domestic violence incident. No, he was the incident. Like,
Stop carrying water for these guys so that you can maintain your sources and so that you can get paid for access, because you're not a fucking journalist. And oh man,
he adds no value. But anyways, I know that was part of my what are we doing here was the Woj aspect of it. It's like, oh, you know what's going to be fucking sick if I release this on Christmas morning before a huge game.
Yeah, no, it's all bad. Things are tough here.
Things are bad.
Things are bad. We're 10 days in and I'm already irritated. Let's get out of here. I know you guys have other stuff to do. Modai's about to be on another podcast. Ferentino's has social activity happening.
Broccoli
it's only
pasta.
about 3 p.m. for me,
yeah,
so I'm just
baby.
gonna go about my day. Always a pleasure, guys. If you're still watching, Elliot, make sure you click the like button. Make sure you comment below. Last time you left a lot of comments, and some of them were pretty mean about me specifically. That's
Keep that
fine.
up. Keep
Like,
that
I don't
up.
know. Say something nice. It doesn't
Helps
matter.
the algorithm.
He might have said something angry, or no, that wasn't a bad one. He said something in our group chat. I don't think it was mean.
If you're watching, click the like button, click the subscribe button, comment below. It gets other people to watch the show. And if you liked the episode or you liked any previous episodes, make sure you share us with your friends. That's it. We will see you guys next week. Peace.
Adios.